Good day, everyone. We are from Group 12 and we are consist of 5 members. The first one is me, Maria Clara Jolide, and then we have Shivon Joy Jeremy. Next, we have Annalise Binti Andy, and then we have Muhammad Fadil bin Sabri, and last but not least, we have Nurul Amalina Batrisha binti Abdul Mukim. So, in this video, we are going to present our assignment topic, which is Does memorizing notes mean a student understand the subject? So, I will begin with the introduction part. A common challenge in education is distinguishing between rote memorization and true conceptual understanding. While many students memorize notes as a primary study strategy, research shows that this surface learning often fails to capture the underlying logic required for complex subjects. True understanding, or meaningful learning, occurs only when a student can synthesize information and apply it to novel situations. Furthermore, although trivial practice can aid memory, it does not inherently guarantee that a student can explain or apply the principles behind the data. This research explores whether relying on memorized notes acts as a barrier to developing the analytical skills necessary for academic mastery. For the objective, the first one is to analyze the relationship between rote memorization of notes and a student's ability to apply concepts analytically. The second one is to identify cognitive disparity between superficial recall and deep conceptual understanding. And for the last part is to compare the effectiveness of note memorization against active learning strategies in fostering subject mastery.
I'm Fadil, so now I will tell you about the problem statement. So, many students today depend on memorizing notes to prepare for exams. While this helps them remember information, it does not always mean they truly understand the subject. Students who memorize often struggle to apply their knowledge in new situations, which shows a lack of deeper understanding. This also limits their critical thinking and problem solving skills. Therefore, this raises an important question. Does memorizing notes really mean a student understands the subject? Okay, now let's continue with the case description. This case study focuses on the difference between rote learning and deep learning among students. It shows that many students rely on memorizing notes, especially for exams, which allows them to recall answers easily. However, the study found that these students often struggle to apply their knowledge in new situations or solve more complex questions. But on the other hand, students who focus on understanding concepts and engaging in deeper learning are better able to apply their knowledge effectively. The findings suggest that memorization alone is not enough to achieve true understanding.
Moving on to analysis and discussion. So, does memorizing notes mean a student truly understands the subject? Simply put, no. So, while these two terms are often used interchangeably in exam-oriented system, they represent fundamentally different cognitive processes. So, memorization is merely the retention or recall of information, often leading to surface learning and short-term retention. In contrast, true understanding requires deeper cognitive engagement. So this involves the ability to explain concept in your own words, apply knowledge to new situation, and analyze complex ideas. So this deep learning is what leads to long-term retention. Now, relying solely on memorization has significant limitation. So it does not support knowledge transfer. For example, a student might recall a formula for a familiar exam question, but struggle to apply it to real-world scenario or a higher order thinking question. Because this student depends on fixed answer, their critical thinking skill remains underdeveloped. Moving on to the next point, understanding matters because it allows us to connect new knowledge with prior concept, leading to logical decision making and the ability to adapt to new problems. However, we must maintain a balanced perspective. So memorization is not the enemy, but rather a complementary. First of all, it plays a supportive role in the early stages of knowledge acquisition. So foundational knowledge like formula, definition, it serves as the essential basis for deeper cognitive processing. You can't analyze a concept you can't remember. Therefore, it can't be used alone to achieve a great outcome. Ultimately, memorization provides us the basic building block, while understanding allows these blocks to be organized and applied effectively. So the goal is not to replace memorization, but to ensure it supports a journey toward deeper comprehension.
For our alternative solution, we identify three main approaches. First is active learning, where students take part in discussions, group work, and problem solving to better understand and apply concepts instead of just memorizing. Second is concept-based learning, which focus on understanding key and the connections between concepts, helping students achieve deeper comprehension. Third is practice and application, where students use what they learn through exercise and real-life examples to strengthen understanding and retention. Overall, these methods show that learning is more effective when students actively engage and understand concepts rather than relying on only memorization. That's all. In conclusion, rote memorization doesn't always reflect true understanding or analytical ability, as it mainly focuses on remembering rather than applying knowledge. This creates a gap between memorizing information and using it effectively. Active learning, concept-based learning, and practice are more effective in developing deeper understanding, critical thinking, and long-term retention. Therefore, a balanced approach that combines memorization with deeper learning strategies is needed for better academic performance and subject mastery.
So this appendix shows the results from our survey. For the first question, we asked people whether memorizing notes is the same as understanding the subject. Most people voted for neutral and disagree. So this means that memorizing notes doesn't mean you fully understand the subject. So for question 2, we asked people if they memorize a formula but they don't know when to use it. Do you feel you have mastered the topic? So most people voted for no. So this means that knowing how to apply it matters more. For question 3, we look at study methods. Almost everyone preferred explaining the concept in their own words instead of just repeating notes, which means that active learning works better. So for question 4, we asked if people can solve 3 questions just by memorizing definitions. Most of the people said sometimes. So again, the memorization alone isn't enough. Okay, so for the last question, as you can see, most students agree that the best sign of real understanding is to know how to apply it in a real-life situation. So overall, as you can see from the results, understanding and applying the concept is way more important than just memorizing. Thank you.